is Ukrainian secrets that are being revealed. Yeah, very interesting. If you guys can hear me properly and you can see me properly, I'd appreciate it if you wrote, "Where is Tiffany Dover? Where is Tiffany Dover?" I'd appreciate it. Um, I think that that's a secret that's going to be revealed pretty soon. I'll wait for chat to catch up before I continue. Where is Tiffany Dover? Where is Tiffany Dover? Waiting for a chat to, there we go. There we go. Plus 333s. Great. Where is Tiffany Dover? Thank you so much. Where is Tiffany Dover? That's an interesting secret now, isn't it? For those of you who don't know, Tiffany Dover was that nurse in Tennessee who took the vaccine in December of 2020. And she took it, and less than 20 minutes later, she fainted on camera. And I remember so clearly how the cameraman panned away from her as she was surrounded by doctors. She fainted dead away as she was talking. She was talking about how safe the vaccine was. Mhm. They didn't give her saline. They learned, because after that, whenever they would give anybody a vaccine on camera, it would always be saline. But that time, one of the early times, they gave it to her, and within 20 minutes, she fainted dead away. And well, dead is the word. She has not been seen alive since then, not indisputably. Mhm. And she used to have an active social media presence, but after that incident, never heard from her again. There's like a picture floating around that's supposed to be of her after the vaccine, but it doesn't look like her, you know? And yeah, and a lot of little clues here and there seem to point to the fact that she's no longer with us. And well, the mainstream media has memory hold her, and I want to keep her memory alive. Mhm. Because at the end, all we have really, all that's left of us once we're gone is our memory. The memory of who we were. And so we should always remember Tiffany Dover, and never allow her to be disappeared. Memory hold. Never, never, never. These last few days have been tense for me. Yeah, I've had a couple of scares here and there. And they were close calls, and they were close calls. And I'm not going to talk about it specifically now. I'll talk about it when this is all over. But it scared the fuck out of me. I'm not going to lie. It's really scared the shit out of me. Thank you for the super chats. By the way, to those, several people have given me super chats, a couple of them really big ones, like $100. And I thank you so much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to schedule a super chat thank you stream at some time for this week or sometime soon. I don't know when, but I will. Not today. Today, I want to talk about a couple of secrets that have come up that are really, really important. You guys saw the thumbnail that I put up on this broadcast, right? Originally, it was just like, I think, a picture of my hat or something stupid like that. I'm kind of sick of those thumbnails. I'm going to be putting meme thumbnails. I like them more. They're more cheerful. And then just variety. You need a change, right? And the meme I put up with this map of Ukraine in the center, and these four politicians. It was Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Mitt Romney, and John Kerry. And there was a picture of the four of them around the map of Ukraine, and from each of them there was an arrow pointed, and the caption said something along the lines of, why do all of these four politicians have children who make a lot of money off of Ukraine, or something like that? Words to the effect. I mean, it leads you to understand that there's a lot of corruption in Ukraine, a lot of secrets in Ukraine. Yeah, because that's what corruption does. See, when you are corrupt, you find yourself in the awkward position of having to do more corruption in order to cover up the previous corruption. Yeah, you start doing worse and worse things to cover up the previous crimes. That's how the ladder of corruption operates. You do a little thing, or a thing that's not that big of a deal, but then you do something worse to cover that, and then something worse to cover that other thing, and up you go until you're rotten to the core. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton, for crying out loud. That woman is the living embodiment of the truth of the picture of Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde's novel, he claimed that people's actions are reflected in their physiognomy. Look at Hillary Clinton. Look at the corruption on that woman's face. Am I wrong? Chat, you tell me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, hit me with a -1. If I'm right, hit me with HC corrupt, or just HCC to signify that Hillary Clinton is corrupt. -1 that I'm totally wrong, or HCC that she is corrupt as all get out. Oh, a lot of Z's apparently. HCC, yeah, Hillary Clinton is corrupt. Anyway, my point is that it seems very clear that Ukraine was this place where all kinds of corruption could be carried out, all kinds of corruption, and all kinds of nastinesses. Mm, yeah, and it's coming out. And two secrets have emerged over the past day or so. Very interesting. Two secrets, two big ones. Or let me phrase that. They are two big ones, objectively big, but they affect different people. They affect them radically different. Mhm. The first one, okay, is that bioweapon labs. Well, there was this rumor, meme, misinformation, call it what you will. Maybe it was a laugh or a lark or something, but it started, the first time I saw it was on Poll and on 4chan, and it said that there were biolabs in Ukraine and that the Russians were targeting these biolabs. There were 26, as I understand it. Mhm. Oh yeah, I got notes and everything here, There were 26 biolabs, and on pollsters, the pollsters were saying, "Oh, notice how the targets of the Russian attacks are the same as where these biolabs are." Ha ha ha. What does that mean? And I was like, in a war, there's all kinds of propaganda, all kinds of nonsense, and on top of that, the obvious inference that, see, if you have a biolab, not a bioweapons lab, just a biolab of whatever sort, you're going to put it in a city. And so, of course, a city is where you're going to target your missiles. I mean, let me phrase that. A city's airports is where you're going to target your missiles if you're, attacking some country, right? So it didn't strike me as weird. Sorry about that. I'm just listening, just to make sure that everything's copacetic. Anyway, so at first when I heard this, I was like, this sounds like bullshit. Yeah, no, not really real, right? But then, well, then the Russians, the Ministry of Defense of the Russians, announced that they had found documentary evidence of bioweapons research funded by the Americans in Ukraine, going against American law and the Geneva Convention. American law is very strict about this. The United States, by law, is not allowed, the United States government, rather, is not allowed to do research into bioweapons. And the Geneva Convention, same thing. But the Russians were claiming through their Ministry of Defense that they had uncovered evidence that bioweapons research was being carried out in Ukraine. Mhm. And they had the documentary evidence, and they produced that documentary evidence. Mhm. Now, I, for one, am not competent to say whether that was accurate information or not. But what I have noticed is that the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Russian Chancellery, the Foreign Affairs, they are very, very careful never to go out and say something that is not 100% accurate, which makes a lot of sense. See, I mean, if you are a minister, or a ministry rather, you want to cultivate the reputation for giving rock solid information. You don't want to be caught spouting a lie. Ghost of Kiev, anybody? Yeah, because you're going to get caught eventually. And of course, when you lie, your credibility goes out the window forever. It doesn't matter if it's a small lie or just the one tiny lie. No, one tiny lie is enough to ruin your reputation forever. We all know that. We're all adults. But if you are consistent about only putting out accurate information that can be double checked, information that has documentary evidence, and if you're very consistent about that, well, it's not that people merely trust you, okay? It's that you actually earn a weapon, a very powerful weapon. Because, see, when you talk, people will listen, people will pay attention to you. So when the Ministry of Defense came out with a general there who seemed to be in charge of these kinds of things, I didn't write down the name and forget about it, never be able to pronounce it, but there's a video floating around. And in fact, I put it on my Telegram channel. Chat, somebody in chat, please post my Telegram channel. It's on Telegram, it's at RealCRP, at RealCRP. Anyway, on my Telegram channel, I posted the video of this general. He's speaking in Russian, but there's subtitles. And it was very clear that it was like a very serious announcement. He wasn't fucking around. It wasn't like one of these like little rumors that they're like slipping out there, you know, off the record. No, the guy, he's sitting there reading a prepared speech, face to the camera with a bunch of reporters, and he's telling it like it is. You don't do a full court press briefing like that unless you've got it nailed down tight. And even then, there were a lot of people who were like, maybe they're lying. You know, they're Russians. They lie about everything. They lie about the sky being blue and you know, water being wet, right? But then yesterday, Victoria Nuland, who's at the center of this whole Russia thing, the Ukraine thing, rather. She's at the center of this whole goddamn thing. She was giving testimony in the U.S. Senate to Marco Rubio, Rhino, Republican in name only. He's a piece of shit as far as I'm concerned. You know, I mean, Marco Rubio, he's just a horrid little man. Just a, you know, just, ugh. Yeah. Anyway, Victoria Nuland, who is the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, and she's essentially the person in charge of the Ukraine situation, and she was instrumental in the 2014 coup d'etat that overthrew the Yanukovych government here in Ukraine. Well, she was giving testimony, and she admitted that these biolabs were American-run. And she said that she was very concerned that the Russians would capture these facilities, and she was working very closely with the people in Ukraine on the ground so that the Russians didn't, you know, capture any vital information. What vital information could they possibly capture? It's the obvious question. And then she said that, but if anything did happen, it would be Russian misinformation and a false flag. She was basically saying that these bioweapons, these bioweapon laboratories that were dealing with plague and all kinds of, you know, terrible diseases, they were fooling around with them, trying to make them more effective, you know? Well, it's real. And the Russian Ministry of Defense was right on the money. This is real. She would never have made such a statement if it weren't real. If it weren't real, she'd say, oh, it's bullshit. It's a Russian propaganda lie. The fact that she was saying it, she was trying to get ahead of the story because it's real. And it's real, it's actual, that they were fooling around with bioweapons and not just, you know, fooling around with biological artifacts to try to figure something out or something. No, they were actively researching bioweapons because she'd never get ahead of the story like this unless it was real. The Americans with the Ukrainians were developing bioweapons. Now, that's the secret that came out. That was one of the secrets that came out. And this is a fucking big fucking secret. And you see the mainstream media is trying to downplay it, trying to say that it's fake news, even though this appeared on fucking C-SPAN. I'm not kidding. This was on fucking C-SPAN, you know? And everybody who's paying attention to this is saying this is heavy shit. This is the reason that the United States went to war with Iraq, because there was a belief that Iraq was messing around with weapons of mass destruction, with chemical or biological weapons. It was not clear, or perhaps nuclear weapons. That was the reason the United States destroyed Iraq and invaded the country. So by the same token, the Russians would say, well, you invaded Iraq on the other side of the world. Well, we invaded Ukraine because it was right in our doorstep. And they were definitely messing around with biological weapons that you were financing. You see? I mean, do you all understand what I'm saying here? Hit me with a +333 if you understand the implications of what I'm saying. I mean, this is heavy shit, man. I'm marking time because I'm still stunned by this. But hit me with a +333 if you understand the implications. The United States was developing weapons of mass destruction in Ukraine. And this is a more than fair justification for the Russians to have invaded Ukraine, because it's the exact same reason that the United States invaded Iraq. That's secret number one that came out yesterday. That's the first secret. Now, the second secret. In the United States, they're not giving it much airplay at all. They don't realize the significance. But in Russia, ooh, this is all over Russia. It's the reason that Vladimir Putin, probably by next weekend, if they do a poll by next weekend, he'll have legitimately plus 80% approval rating, at least. And it'll be totally legitimate because this secret came out. And the secret was that the Russians have discovered documentary evidence, hard evidence, that the Zelensky regime had decided to attack the Donbass. And that's why the entire shock troops, the entire army of Ukraine was in eastern Ukraine, right on the border with Lugansk and Donetsk. That's why they kept saying, the Americans and everybody, freaking out about American soldiers, Russian soldiers on the Ukrainian border. Because what was really going on was that the Ukrainians were preparing an invasion of the Donbass. And that's why they've started shelling over the last few weeks. They were softening the ground for an invasion. And this gives more than ample justification for the invasion. It basically says that the documentary evidence that's come out, and specialists, none have refuted it. And a lot of specialists have said, yeah, this looks legitimate. And I'm sure that more evidence will pop up if it hasn't popped up already as I'm speaking to you now. But in Russia, this is a huge deal because to the public, it's basically saying they were going to attack Russian citizens in the Donbass region. They were planning an invasion, and the Russian army essentially beat them to the punch. And there is some secondary evidence that proves that this is likely what was going on, because a lot of people have been saying, how come the Ukrainian army was so far east? Because if you look at Ukraine, okay, let me see, from your point of view, like over here is eastern Ukraine, right? Let's assume that you guys, or maybe you're looking at this side. Okay, I don't know how you're looking at it. No, fuck it. On the eastern side of it, okay, on the eastern side of Ukraine, the army, the Ukrainian army, was all concentrated there, about 60,000 men or so, give or take. Some estimates put it as high as 100,000, but they were all concentrated on the east. Why? Why would you concentrate at least a quarter of all the men that you have under arms? You would concentrate it on one little corner right on the Donbass, and which could be so easily encircled, because today that happened. The Russians have completely encircled the main Ukrainian army. This main army, it's basically surrounded and cut off from resupply. In a very real sense, the war is over. Because that army, one or two things is going to happen. Either it's going to sort of like melt away with deserters, or it's going to be cut to pieces by the Russians. And the second would be a tragedy, because all those young men will die for nothing, which I think would be a catastrophe for Ukraine. You don't want that. And I certainly fervently hope that that does not happen. But the point I want to make is that, see, the army was all there concentrated, and it was surrounded relatively quickly. I mean, less than a couple of weeks, the whole army has been surrounded. What's going on? Well, the only reason that the army was concentrated there is if they were preparing to launch an attack. And that gives justification for the Russians to have invaded Ukraine. It basically proves the point that Vladimir Putin has been saying, which was, they were about to invade, we had to defend, and so we went ahead and did it. And this is a police action to demilitarize and to denazify Ukraine. Because that's what Vladimir Putin has consistently been saying. With these documents coming out that, again, seem to be totally on the level. And again, like I said before, the ministries, the Russian ministries, they're not going out there and confirming every little thing unless they're absolutely sure. Not only that the evidence that they're presenting is true, but also that they have more supporting evidence behind it. Which, again, I mean, and for PR purposes, if you're ever in public relations, this is a smart move. Always tell the truth, even when it's ugly, because in the long run, people will trust you. And in the long run, people will start to see things your way. And that's what's happening in Russia. Public perceptions were not totally 100% with the war, with this invasion or police action or special operation, call it what you will, it doesn't matter. They were not, the people in Ukraine, in Russia, were not 100% with this whole operation, if you want to call it that. And there was protests, and there was some arrests and all the rest of it. But now, after this, it's getting huge play, and it's giving Vladimir Putin all the justification needed. And if people say, oh, they manufactured this evidence, okay, fine, then why didn't they manufacture it last week? When it would have had more of an effect and would have made Vladimir Putin's life easier earlier. You see my point? I don't think it's manufactured. I think it's for real. Now, again, I do not read Cyrillic. I do not speak either Ukrainian or Russian, so I cannot know. But Western observers and people who I know for a fact speak it well and have looked at the documents, nobody's saying that they look fake. They're saying that they look pretty much on the level, okay? And so these are the two big secrets that have come out. Now the question becomes, what other secrets are going to come out of Ukraine? And is this the reason that so many people in the West are freaking out over Ukraine? Is Ukraine like this piñata of secrets that will be broken open and people in the West will realize how incredibly corrupt the political class is, how they've had their snouts in the trough of Ukraine for years and years and years, paying off their moron sons, like in the case of Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and John Kerry and Mitt Romney? Is that's what they're afraid of? They're afraid that they're going to be found out, that their corruption and their petty little schemes are going to be found out? I think so. I think that's what's freaking them out. It's going to be fucking funny if you ask me. Because there are a lot of secrets that I think should come out. Like, I mean, like for instance, a few secrets that we know are lies. You know, the ghost of Kiev. You know, how many planes did he shoot down? You know, first it was 6 planes, then 11 planes, then 25, then like 500. Then it was like, no, it's not 500. It was 617 Russian airplanes were shot down by the ghost of Kiev. And he did it in one day. And then, you know, the 13 brave souls of Snake Island who said, Russian ship, fuck you. Yeah, that's what they said. And then, you know, they were killed by the Russians, the evil Russians who just leveled Snake Island. And then it turned out that there were 82 people, which is surprising. I saw a picture of the island, it looked very small, not enough for 82 people, but it was 82 soldiers, and none of them were dead. They looked healthy. They looked perfectly fine, not even injured. Yeah. Then there was the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, where very clearly agents provocateurs of the Zelensky regime started, broke into the nuclear power station and started using an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, to draw Russian fire and potentially cause there was never really any fear of an actual nuclear accident, but just the PR of the Russians shelling a nuclear station. Even though it wasn't the actual reactor, it was a service building on the side, and the service building on the side was set on fire by these provocateurs. But yeah, that was another lie of the Zelensky regime. Yeah, the cokehead of Kiev only knows how to lie. Yeah, that's all he knows how to do. Then, the cokehead of Kiev said that he had been the victim, the target of three assassination attempts. Yeah. Of course, he didn't mention the fact that his goons had killed mayors, disappeared them, kidnapped them, tortured them. Yeah. 2 mayors that I know of for a fact. Mayor Strzok and Mayor Prilipko. Kidnapped and killed by Zelensky goons. Well, Prilipko wasn't killed. He was just shot by the SBU. the Ukraine version of the KGB. Mm. And then they took that member of parliament, you know, goons took him, kidnapped him at knife point, threatening to slice his throat. And they handed him over to the SBU, and there's video evidence of him being abused by the SBU. Mm. It's real, baby. Yeah. And then there was, well, Mayor Struck, I mentioned him. That kills me. A guy, small town mayor of a town of 18,000 souls, kidnapped, shot through the heart, and his body dumped in the middle of the town by the goons of the Zelensky regime. The cokehead of Kiev's people, man, they're fucking brutal. They're mad dogs as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's all lies. It's all lies with them. And the lies that I want us to discover are, you know, the Russians. The Russians have figured out a way. I'm going to make a video about this probably tomorrow. The Russians have figured out something really clever. That they first applied this in Syria. In Syria, they created these humanitarian corridors for the civilians, right? And the Russians would guarantee all civilians going through these corridors from a set period of time, from like say, 9 in the morning until 6 p.m. at night. During those hours, the Russians guaranteed that nothing would happen to anybody there, right? And they lived up to their word. They were as good as their word in Syria. And what happened, and the whole point of these humanitarian corridors was, yes, it's great to drain an area of civilians, but also it gives the opportunity for soldiers to slip out of their uniforms and desert. That's the real reason that the Russians do these humanitarian corridors, okay? I mean, I'm sure that the Russians are thinking, yes, we have to help the civilians, but what they're really thinking, at least the Russian army is really thinking, is wouldn't it be great if a bunch of opposing soldiers would desert and we gave them the opportunity to desert, a pathway, and we would guarantee their safety so that they could slip away? That's how the Russians think, and it's a clever way. And it's been very successful in Syria. Lots of times, an army or a group of combatants that they were facing, all of a sudden their numbers were reduced by 40%, 50%. A couple of times it was 75%, just like that, by the creation of these humanitarian corridors. Because soldiers are people. And if some 20, 22-year-old kid who's scared shitless, he's had his first battle, and he's lucky to be alive, and he knows it, he's freaking out. And he hears that the Russians are creating this corridor for civilians, and that anybody who goes through the corridor, they're not going to check their documents, they're not going to check anything, and they guarantee safety. What do you think that 20, 22-year-old kid is going to do? I remember when I was 20, 22, I was fake tough, like you were probably, like we all are, but the chance to slip away, not get caught, guaranteed by the Russians, you take it. And of course, in these humanitarian corridors, the Russians made sure that nothing ever happened to them. Because of course, if the Russians had shelled these humanitarian corridors, then people would realize, don't go down the corridor because you're going to get killed by the Russians. And so the army would not have deserted, which is the whole point of these humanitarian corridors as far as the Russians are concerned. You see? So now here in Ukraine, they're saying how the Russians are shelling humanitarian corridors. It doesn't make sense. It goes directly against the whole purpose of the humanitarian corridors. The Russians are setting it up deliberately to get people out, soldiers out. Get those soldiers to desert, to lay down their weapons and slip out. That's why they're setting them up. So it makes no sense at all that they'd start to shell them. But what if the Zelensky goons are shelling them? Well, that's what I think. Because it doesn't make any sense. Because it goes directly against what the Russians want to do. They want to weaken the will of their opponent. They don't want to stiffen that will by shelling these humanitarian corridors and making those soldiers believe, shit, we got to stand and fight to the death because these Russians won't let us slip away. You see my point? Yeah. So I want to know about that little secret. The other little secret is I want to know about the false flags that the regime of the cokehead of Kiev has carried out. Because there's no doubt in my mind that there's been a bunch of false flags in Ukraine. carried out by the Zelensky regime because they're crazy. They're mad dogs. Mm. I posted on my Telegram channel video imagery taken from a drone of a Azov battalion setting up a rocket-propelled grenade from the rooftop of a building. Now, why is that significant? Because the building was a civilian apartment complex. And so, of course, the Russians, when they figure out that the RPG fire is coming from the rooftop of some building, they're going to try to take out the building, of course. And of course, the Zelensky regime will use that and claim that the Russians are trying to kill civilians. See? Drawing fire, Russian fire, to create the conditions of a PR nightmare. I mean, the Zelensky regime is so much better at information warfare than the Russians. The Russians are winning the war, no question. And anybody who's saying no, they're not, they're coping, man. Look at a fucking map. And you don't even have to believe the map. Look at all these videos of civilians filming little towns, wherever the fuck, in Ukraine. And they film, Russian soldiers, Russian tanks, Russian equipment rolling through, or maybe the Russian soldiers, setting up camp in the center of the city. You can't fake that, okay? That's real. And that, gives support to the maps that are being released. The Russians are fucking winning. And they are winning with incredible speed. That's something that people don't seem to understand because people think that, a blitzkrieg is like 2 days. I've said this before. See, in World War II, when the Germans did the Blitz of France, for instance, people don't seem to remember or understand that Northern Europe, Belgium and the Netherlands are tiny. They're microscopic like this, okay? When I rode my motorcycle from Amsterdam all the way to Kharkov, it took me the morning to cross all the way south out of the Netherlands. Maybe 3 hours, okay? That's how small the Netherlands is. And then to cross Ukraine from the Polish-Ukrainian border all the way to Kharkov on the other side of the country took me 4 fucking days. Yeah, because Hitler, when he invaded the Netherlands and Belgium and swept into northern France, he did that, in like a week or some shit like that. Yeah, because those countries are tiny. Ukraine is huge. People don't seem to understand this. And so they think that, the Russians didn't capture the whole country in 3 days, therefore they're losing. Just morons. Okay, but anyway, the real point. The Zelensky regime is winning the PR war, winning the information war. But they're going to lose the war, the real war. And after that, I want to know what those false flags were, what those secrets were, because there were a lot of secrets, a lot of goddamn secrets. And I want to know what those secrets are. And I want to know which politicians in the West, which politicians had their snout in the trough of Ukraine. Those pigs, I want to know how much money they were getting. And is that why they're freaking out now? Because it's all anyone can talk about. Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. And everything that the Russians say automatically is disinformation, misinformation, fake news, lies. The Russians always lie. Yeah? They claim water is wet. It's not wet. It's not wet if the Russians say it. Why are they getting hysterical? Because they know the judgment is coming. They know what's coming. That's why they're trying to get ahead of this. That's why they're trying to say that, the Russians are evil and all the rest of it. That's why they project so much. You got to understand these people. See, whenever they accuse the opponent of something, it's really what's in their own hearts. That's the key issue. These people have, they have no goodness or honesty or decency in their soul. I'm talking about the leadership of the West. The leaders of the West they're evil, as far as I'm concerned. And I'll tell you my thinking. It would be really, really easy for me not to do these videos and not to do these live streams and to keep quiet and sort of like slink away. Slink away, keep quiet, and not say anything. It would be really easy. But I realize that my responsibility is in however tiny and microscopic a fashion I can to tell people what's really going on so that they don't have to believe me, but at least think, at least look a little bit into it yourself and maybe realize that maybe I'm not just full of shit. Maybe what I'm saying is actually true. And maybe you shouldn't follow your leaders off a cliff because the problem is the way things are going, we might wind up with a nuclear war. And I cannot believe that we're actually saying this, but it's true. We are closer to nuclear war, like a real nuclear war, than at any time in my lifetime. And I lived through the Cold War. Mhm. The Cold War ended when I was 22, 23 years old. Okay. And I'm telling you, this is the scariest time in my lifetime in a geopolitical sense. And it's not because I happen to be right in the eye of the hurricane. I'm telling you as the truth. This is as scary as it gets. Okay? Wow. And so if I can do these broadcasts, touch a few people, and perhaps you all can hear what I have to say, and if you only tell two other people, and don't confront them, don't be confrontational, don't go straight towards them. No, slide up next to them. Slide up next to them and just have something in your hand and say, look at this. What do you think of this? What do you think of this? This is what I've seen, or this is what this guy is saying. What do you think? Hmm? And if people say that I'm a Putin shill or something like that, I could give a shit. Hmm? I don't really care. I mean, I don't care what other people think of me. Thank God I've gotten to that point in my life that what other people think of me just does not matter anymore. It just doesn't. What matters, I realize what's truly valuable is trying to prevent needless suffering, needless death. Mm? Because, the great gift we have as human beings is not life, quote unquote. No, no, no. It's consciousness. Consciousness. Being conscious, being aware of the reality that we are experiencing. That is the great gift. Mm? Being alive, like for instance, if you're in a vegetative state with all kinds of machinery, but you're unconscious in a coma or something, that has no value. No. Consciousness, being aware of reality, that's the most valuable thing. Mhm. It's such a wonderful thing that we have. And so to see it squandered, to see it lost, to see it thrown away in pointless wars, and death and destruction that has no meaning, no significance, which is what I think is happening now. Or worse yet, to have life thrown away so that some corrupt people thousands and thousands of miles away can protect their reputations, and not get into trouble, not wind up going to jail for the little corrupt little deeds that they were doing. And that's a tragedy. A horrifying price to pay for some people's just pathetic little corruptions. I mean, I want to prevent that. And if I can prevent it by doing these broadcasts, by talking to you about these things, well, that's what I'm hoping to achieve. Okay? Okay, I've been yapping for what? 40 minutes. And I promised myself that I wanted to keep it short and sweet this time. So that's all for today. Catch you next time.